Well, certainly worried, considering that not everyone who wanted to vote has come out to vote, and there has, of course, been that call from Raila Odinga, NASA's presidential candidate, or once NASA's presidential candidate, calling on NASA supporters not to heed the call to go out and vote. And I just quickly want to see if I can bring in the presiding officer of this polling station where we're at the moment. The polling station is closing. It is just after 5 p.m. That's where all the polling stations in Kenya are supposed to close down. David Onyango, just quickly tell us about the process that has been undergone this far, and comparing it to what happened on August the 8th. The numbers don't seem to be the same. The turnout, rather.
Okay, the number is not the same, but I cannot tell what has happened this time, because thus maybe the voters some were willing to come and vote, and others were not willing to come and vote.
And you've also been part of the 2007 elections, and this is what the outcome is at this moment.
I think that's the results, and the voters' turnout was low. I cannot tell what has happened, but maybe it's just due to voters' apathy. Yeah, that's what I can say. But much I can't tell at this situation.
Okay, then. Thank you so much, David. As is indicated, he can't tell why exactly people have not come out, but one thing that we know is that the presiding officers have all seen numbers dwindling. And we just quickly want to rush to one of the other voting stations where we have former President Thabo Mbeki, who is part of the observer missions, leading the AU observer missions that is looking into these elections that are currently taking place. Of course, they were part of the August 8 elections that took place as well, and those elections, of course, are being nullified by the Court of Law, the Supreme Court of Law, and that's the reason why we have these elections that are currently taking place. Let's just bring you visuals currently of the observer missions that are currently meeting. As you can see there, there we have former President Thabo Mbeki, former South African President Thabo Mbeki, leading the AU Commission Observer Mission, which is the African Union observer mission that is here in Kenya, looking at all that has been happening throughout the day. Of course, as we've been saying throughout the day as well, that Kenyans have not come out in their numbers, and some probably heeding that call from NASA's once presidential candidate, Raila Odinga, saying that people should not come out and vote, accusing the government of being illegitimate. And as you can see there, we're showing you one box, that is the presidential box. That's because the Supreme Court of Appeal has indicated that the rerun of the elections will only focus on the presidential polls, and that's the reason why we are here. And during the August 8 elections, we had 5 boxes that were there, which also included members of the different councils, the different counties as well. But as we've indicated, this is where we're at the moment. I'm trying to bring you the news as they come in. Of course, many will be looking quite closely what the AU Commission's recommendations would be, and also what the observer missions have found in terms of looking into the elections as they've been taking place across the country. One thing that President Uhuru Kenyatta stressed earlier on while he was making his vote after he cast his ballot is the number of people that have turned out. But if you listen to Deputy President William Ruto, he stresses that after these polls there will be a president of Kenya and there will be a deputy president of Kenya, and many believe that that president will be Uhuru Kenyatta and that deputy president will be William Ruto. Just to have to wait and see what those margins would be like. Quite certainly won't be the same thing as what we saw during the August 8 elections. If you look at the results of the August 8 elections, the margins between Raila Odinga as well as Uhuru Kenyatta, there was a 10% difference. Uhuru Kenyatta getting 54% of the vote and Raila Odinga at around 44% of the vote. And people are stressing that if you look at those numbers, it definitely shows that this country has been divided by the decision by Raila Odinga not to contest these elections. If you follow Raila Odinga on his Twitter account, he's indicated, and this is something that he reiterated yesterday as well at at a rally in Uhuru Park that there will be a people's assembly that NASA will be calling for, and NASA has declared that from today, the 26th of October, NASA will become a resistance movement. Many have asked the question, what shape does a resistance movement take? And we've also been stressing that although Raila Odinga once made the call that the 26th of October will be a day of protest, he yesterday said that people should rather stay at home and they should rather pray and not go to these polling stations. If you look at what happened at Kibera, what happened at Kisumu, where 2 people have now been confirmed to have been killed, they have not heed that call. They went out violently protesting and tear gas being fired, and police really struggling to disperse these protesting voters as they try to make sure that their message is being heard as well by what they call an illegitimate government. And some saying that even when the IEBC makes the announcement of the results, they will not accept Uhuru Kenyatta as the duly elected president of Kenya.
Indeed, an acrimonious political environment, and we're also hearing reports throughout the day of polling stations that were forced to close in some areas. Now, if some districts or counties fail to hold these elections and no voting goes on there, we will end up with legal challenges. How ready would you say is the judiciary for what comes next? They have been saying time and time again over the months that battles should be taken to the courts and not fought on the streets.
Well, the judiciary has always indicated that they are more than ready to hear these disputes over the elections. But if what happened yesterday is anything to go by, some have some sort of uncertainty. You remember that yesterday there was an urgent application that was brought to the Supreme Court of Appeal to listen to a matter brought by 3 Kenyans who were asking or applying to the court saying that the elections must be postponed. But the Supreme Court's justices couldn't quorate. There were only 2 justices available, and some are saying that that is a concern, while NASA, on the other hand, is arguing that this was something that the judiciary has always contemplated. It's not a coincidence that you have 5 justices who were not available to listen to this matter, and making a comparison about what happened yesterday as well, when the High Court made a ruling that the returning officers in the 290 counties, that their appointment was illegal and invalid, and late in the evening the Supreme Court of Appeal managed to sit down and listen to this matter, the appeal that was brought by the IEBC, and overturning that High Court ruling that stated that the presiding officers rather in the 290 constituencies, that their appointment was illegal and invalid. And the caution that the Supreme Court of Appeal gave there was that this issue could bring the court, or that order by the High Court could bring this country into a constitutional crisis. So what will the courts be able to do after these polls, after these elections, after the results have been declared? And the Chief Justice David earlier on also cast his ballot, and it's we were actually speaking to our editor earlier on that this means that he will also be the person that have to preside over these legal issues that will be coming forth.
Thank you, Aldrin. Aldrin Sampear indeed has had a long day in Nairobi for us. He's been tracking the Kenyan election. That's on in Kenya. Polls closing this hour in Kenya, and we are seeing a generally lower turnout across the country.